started working at Idle and Memory Clinic 6 weeks ago. That's what my employee file says. Anyway, the truth is, I can't remember applying. There's no email confirmation, no interview I can recall, just a vague sensation that I needed a job, and then somehow I had one. They told me I was a retention technician. The name sounds more complicated than the task. I prep patients before and after their memory procedures, escort them to the recalibration wing, read from a script, monitor the machines. It's all very clean, clinical, sterile, even in its language. My first day felt like my 50th. Everything was familiar. The layout of the halls, the sound the security doors made when they sealed shut, the scent of those lemon-sanitized floors, even the staff. I recognized them, though none of them claimed to know me. "New guy," said Tom from Medical Integration. "Looks like you've done this before." I laughed politely, but the words lodged in my chest, because sometimes, in the quiet stretches of my shift, I get the strange feeling I have done this before. Maybe not exactly this job, but something close. I've caught glimpses of myself in the reflective glass near the procedure rooms, and there's this tightness in my eyes, not fatigue, not fear, something deeper, something like recognition. The clinic itself is buried on the edge of a fog-heavy valley, about 30 miles from town. No cell service, no satellite maps. It's the kind of place you'd only find if you were looking for it, or if someone wanted you to. They told me during onboarding that memory erasure isn't what Hollywood makes it out to be. There are no flashing lights or spinning spirals, no sudden amnesia or panicked patients. Instead, it's quiet, peaceful. They lie back. The machine clicks once, and then it's gone. The breakup, the death, the trauma, whatever they came into, forget they wake up lighter. At least, that's what they say. But sometimes, just before the erasure, their hands shake. Sometimes they cry and don't know why. One woman gripped my wrist so tightly, I felt it bruise through my coat. She looked straight through me and whispered, "Don't let them take all of it." I reported the incident. Management logged it and dismissed it. Residual fear responses, they said. Normal pre-wipe anxiety. Still, I wrote her words down. I don't know why. Maybe because something in her voice felt familiar. There's a smell in the east wing that doesn't show up anywhere else in the building. Faint copper and ozone, like scorched wires and old blood. I asked the janitor about it once, but he just stared at me like I'd told a joke in a language he didn't understand. Things vanish here, not just memories, objects. A locker that used to be mine was suddenly empty, as if it had never been assigned. A mug I used every day just disappeared. I even lost an entire hour during my second week. Clocked in at 8, logged a procedure. Then suddenly, it was 9:14. No memory, no explanation. I thought maybe I'd just missed something. Skipped breakfast. Didn't sleep enough. That's the comforting answer. The sane one. But lately, I'm not so sure anymore. Because last night, I had a dream I was strapped to the same machine we use on patients. And when I woke up this morning, I remembered everything. I arrived at Eidolon Memory Clinic just after dusk on a Monday. The sun had already dipped behind the hills, bleeding a final streak of rust-colored light across the sky. I remember thinking how quiet it was out there. Not peaceful, but hollow, like sound itself was avoiding the place. No insects, no birds, just the crunch of gravel under the company shuttle's tires as it pulled away, leaving me standing alone outside a glass-paneled building that looked more like an art museum than a clinic. There were no signs, no logo, just a metal panel beside the door that lit up when I approached. I placed my hand on the scanner, half expecting nothing to happen. The door hissed open immediately. Inside, it was cold. Too cold, like they were refrigerating something. Far beneath the surface, the front atrium was vast and empty. Polished white floors, dark steel accents, Walls covered in what I thought were decorative lines, until I realized they formed neuron maps. A woman stood waiting for me. Pale blue scrubs. No name tag. "You're early," she said, tilting her head. "That's good." She handed me a slim black folder. My name was printed across the top in embossed silver. Inside were two things: a contract I apparently had already signed, and a rules list. That was my real onboarding. There was no orientation video, no handshake, just a long walk down silent hallways while she read the rules aloud, like a priest reciting a ritual. Here's what she told me. Word for word, rules for technicians assigned to recalibrationer: speak to a patient outside of your assigned script. Deviation may interfere with calibration results. Emotional entanglements are grounds for immediate removal. Do not observe any procedure in room 6. If the room is occupied, reroute your path. Do not pause. Do not acknowledge what you hear. If you hear the term mirror echo, report it immediately to central diagnostics. Do not ask the patient what they meant. Do not repeat the term aloud at 3:33 a.m. each night. Take a 10-minute break in the North Wing Observation Lounge, regardless of where you are or what task you're performing. Set an alarm. This is mandatory. If you find a photograph in your locker and you don't recognize the people in it, burn it in the incineration chute by the staff kitchen. Do not keep it. Do not show it to anyone. And never try to remember. The janitor does not work here. If you see him cleaning the hallway, return to your room and wait exactly 9 minutes before resuming duties. Do not speak to him. Every Friday, write your full name, birthday, and a secret only you would know on the form provided at check-in. Seal it in the envelope and drop it in the gray box labeled personal truth. This helps us maintain cognitive baseline. When she finished, we stood in silence at a locked elevator. I must have looked confused, maybe even amused, because she turned to me and said, flatly, "You'll take them seriously by week 2. Everyone does." I didn't press her. I thought maybe it was some kind of psychological trick, a way to keep employees alert. A bizarre version of corporate culture. I'd worked tech jobs with worse rituals. The elevator took us down 5 levels into the subterranean complex. That's where the patients were. That's where the real work happened. Each technician was given their own dorm-style room in the south wing. Mine was small, but clean white walls. Single bed, no windows. Just a small desk, a wardrobe, and a mirror mounted above the sink. I unpacked quickly. There wasn't much to bring. The welcome folder said we'd work 6-day rotations with 12-hour shifts. No visitors, no phones, no outside contact during contract periods. I remember looking at the clock. 9:03 p.m. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember what I dreamed. A hallway lined with doors, each slightly ajar. A humming sound, low and deep, coming from somewhere behind the walls, and a shadow standing behind the one-way glass of room 6, watching me even though I wasn't supposed to be there. When I woke up, my nose was bleeding, just a little, a smear on the pillow, dry and dark. I made a note of it in my log. The next morning, my training began. No patients the first day, just machine calibration, script memorization, and access protocols. The procedures were scheduled late at night, when most of the building was empty. By the 3rd day, I was assisting in sessions. The patients came in looking hollow, lost. Some of them clutched teddy bears. Some brought wedding rings in plastic baggies or notebooks they weren't allowed to keep. Every session began the same way. I'd recite the script. They'd confirm the target memory. The machine would activate, and when it was over, they'd blink, sit up, and look at me like we'd never met. It was disturbing at first. How clean the process was. How seamless. But I told myself I could handle it. After all, I was just a technician. Just a guide between forgetting and peace. But that was before I found the photo. before I heard the whisper behind the mirror in room 6, before I started seeing things in the North Wing lounge, things that remembered me. It started on my 9th shift, a Thursday. I was in the recalibration wing, prepping for a 1:15 a.m. session. The halls were silent, as usual. Most of the building stays dark between midnight and 4. Only the pale blue strips of floor lighting stay on, guiding your way like breadcrumbs. The patient's name was Elliot Grant, 45, ex-military. Requested erasure of a classified incident involving the death of 2 squad members in a training accident. Memory conflict, resulting in recurring nightmares. Guilt, paralysis, suicidal ideation, the file said. The procedure was booked in room 4, but as I neared the corridor, a low buzz came through my earpiece. Room 4, occupied. System redirect. Room 6. I stopped walking. That didn't make sense. Room 6 wasn't in the rotation. As far as I knew, it had been sealed since before I arrived. During onboarding, I was told explicitly to avoid it. Rule 2. Do not observe any procedure in room 6. If the room is occupied, reroute your path. Do not pause. Do not acknowledge what you hear. I hesitated. For a moment, I thought about radioing control, but the hallway was empty. The earpiece hissed softly, and the override code was already printed on my clipboard in faint gray letters, so I swiped in. The door opened slower than the others, like it hadn't been used in years. The hinges squealed. Inside, the room looked identical to the others. Black chair, white console, a small wall-mounted monitor pulsing with soft light, but the air was colder. Not just temperature, something deeper, like the oxygen had been thinned out. Mr. Grant was already strapped in, upright.com, but as I approached, I noticed something strange. He wasn't blinking. His eyes were wide open, locked on the ceiling, and a small line of blood was trickling from his left nostril. Still, the system said everything was nominal. No vitals flagged. Memory parameters locked. I leaned in to perform the standard calibration check. That's when he whispered it. Don't let them mirror it. I froze. He hadn't moved his mouth. The voice came out dry, rasped, like someone speaking through cracked glass. My earpiece buzzed again. Unauthorized phrase detected. Report to Central Diagnostics. The term echoed in my head like a ricochet. Mirror it. Mirror echo. Rule 3. If you hear the term mirror echo, report it immediately. Do not repeat the term aloud. I backed away from the console. I should have left. I knew that. Every instinct said, turn around, get out, report it. But something about Mr. Grant held me there. His mouth moved again, slower this time. You're not new, he whispered. You just don't remember. Then his eyes rolled back. The console clicked once. The procedure began anyway. I stood there, frozen, as the memory sequence ran itself. Images flickered on the monitor beside him. War-torn buildings, static, blood in the sand. Then suddenly, a sharp cut to an empty hallway with flickering lights. It looked like this hallway, like the recalibration wing, and standing at the end of it was me. Just a frame, a blur, but unmistakably my posture, my uniform, my face. The screen blinked. The image vanished. The procedure ended. Mr. Grant slumped forward in his chair, eyes closed, his breath steady again. When I finally moved, I triggered the emergency override, marked the session as corrupted, and called Central. 2 men arrived within minutes. No names, no small talk. They wheeled Mr. Grant out without acknowledging me. Before they left, one of them handed me a form marked in bold red ink, session log to be observation error. I was told to sign it. I did. No one asked why I entered room 6. No one punished me for it. But that night, when I got back to my room, something was waiting. A photograph slipped under my door. In it, I was standing in the North Wing lounge, smiling next to a man I didn't recognize. But the room was warped, somehow. All the reflections were wrong. In the photo, my reflection wasn't smiling. It was screaming. I burned the photograph that same night. It didn't feel like a choice, more like a compulsion. My hands moved on their own, retrieving a lighter from the drawer, walking stiffly toward the staff kitchen where the incineration chute glowed faintly red in the floor. Rule 5. If you find a photograph in your locker and you don't recognize the people in it, burn it. I hadn't found it in my locker exactly, but I figured the door counted. I watched the photo curl and blacken in the chute, the reflection of that screaming version of me evaporating into smoke. My chest ached with something I couldn't describe. Not fear, not relief, emptiness, like I'd just erased something real. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the edge of my bed, waiting for 3:33 a.m. so I could fulfill another obligation. Rule 4. At 3:33 a.m. each night, take a 10-minute break in the North Wing Observation Lounge. I never questioned it before, just another rule among many. But after the photograph, I started wondering. The North Wing Lounge was a large glass-walled room at the far end of the facility. Most nights it was empty. There was a single couch, a coffee machine no one used, and a panoramic window that looked out into total blackness. There were no trees, no lights, just fog, dense and unmoving. A thick, gray sea. I arrived at 3:32. The lights above the lounge flickered on as I stepped in, as if the room was expecting me. I sat on the couch, waited. At 3:33 exactly, I heard footsteps, soft, slow, heavy, coming from behind the glass. I leaned forward, squinting. There was nothing there at first, just fog, pressing up against the window like steam. But the footsteps continued, closer, wet-sounding, muffled, like they were trudging through something. Thick, then a shape, just outside the glass. Not a person, a silhouette, broad shoulders. No face, no features, just a shadow etched in static. It wasn't walking, it was gliding. I should have run, but I couldn't move. The air had thickened, like syrup in my lungs. I just sat there, frozen, as the shape pressed closer to the window until I could see myself not in the glass behind it. A version of me, pale and gray, reaching up to touch the glass from the other side. Its hand was trembling, its lips were moving, but no sound came through. Then the power flickered. When the lights came back on, the figure was gone. The lounge was empty again. My clock read 3:43. I had stayed too long the next morning. Something had changed. My locker was open, though I was certain I had locked it the night before. Inside, all of my items had been rearranged, clothes folded differently, my notebook placed spine down instead of face up, and taped to the inside of the door was a note I hadn't written. "You missed it last time. You're on track now." No signature, just a drawing beneath it. A crude sketch of the North Wing Lounge, and in the center of the drawing, a tiny black scribble, a shape behind the window. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't report it. I wasn't even sure I could explain it. Instead, I walked straight to medical integration and pulled Tom aside. He was older than the others, wore a silver chain around his wrist, said it kept him grounded. When I asked him what he remembered about his first few weeks, he gave me a strange look. Then, very slowly, he said, "I had to burn 3 photos before I stopped dreaming in third person." I stared at him, unsure what that meant. He shrugged. "You'll understand eventually." I asked about the lounge, the 3:33 rule, the thing behind the glass. Tom's face darkened. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "You ever wonder why that window shows nothing? Not even stars? That's not outside, friend. That's a reflection of something trying very hard to look like absence." Then he turned and walked away, and just like that, I realized something I hadn't noticed until then. No one here talks for very long. They greet you, nod, give orders, but conversations are short. Eyes are evasive, smiles are thin. Because the longer you speak, the more you risk remembering. After what I saw in the lounge, and the note in my locker, I stopped pretending. I was just a technician. I began searching. Not all at once, not openly, but in the slow, methodical way someone might peel wallpaper from an old house, knowing the real walls underneath could be rotten. The first place I looked was the archive room, a quiet chamber in the east wing where old procedure files are supposedly kept for audits. You need a clearance badge to get in. I didn't have one, but Tom did. I waited until his break, watched him leave his station, and swiped the badge from his lanyard while he smoked just outside the south wing bay doors. He never even looked up. The door to the archive clicked open, like it was holding its breath. Inside, it smelled of dust and burnt plastic. The lights were dimmer than anywhere else in the clinic, most of them flickering faintly overhead. Rows of metal cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with white tags. Client memory files redacted, emergent events, recalibration, errors. I opened a drawer at random. Inside were dozens of VHS tapes, not discs, not digital logs, actual magnetic tapes, black and cracked at the edges, like they'd been watched too many times. Each had a date, time, and a name. Some of the names had been scratched out with a blade. I found one labeled simply, Room 6, Incident 14B. De Ignition. EN. No date, just a single note underneath in shaky handwriting. Recovered. Do not run diagnostics. I took it, slipped it under my coat, and walked out. I expected sirens, locks, someone yelling behind me, but nothing came. The archive door closed behind me with a soft click, and the hallway swallowed me whole. There was only one place I could view the tape, an old AV monitor in the obsolete training room. It hadn't been used in years. Dust covered the chairs. The projector bulb had burned out, but the tape deck still worked. I slid the tape in for a few seconds. There was only static, then a flicker. The footage was in black and white. Room 6. Unmistakable. A technician stood beside the chair, adjusting something on the console. Their face was obscured, but their posture was familiar. Too familiar. They moved like me. Same habit of rubbing the back of the neck. Same lopsided stance. The timestamp on the video flashed multiple dates. At once the 12th of March, 97. 6 de agosto de 2004. November 19th, 23. Then settled into unreadable symbols. A patient was strapped in, calm, breathing. SHALLOWLY. The technician spoke a few words. No audio, but you could tell it was the standard script. The patient nodded. Then the screen twitched. A sudden distortion, like the signal warped. The technician leaned in, but something was wrong with the reflection in the console glass. While the technician remained still, the reflection moved on its own, smiling, leaning closer, whispering something. The reflection reached forward and touched the glass from the inside. Then the camera cut. The feed went black. When the image returned, the chair was empty. The technician was gone. The room looked stretched, angled wrong, like the geometry itself had twisted. A new figure now stood in the corner, facing the wall, motionless. Its limbs were too long. Its shadow didn't match the lighting. And when it finally turned, I saw its face. My face distorted like melting wax. Mouth open, eyes wide, as if screaming forever in total silence. I ejected the tape, dropped it, nearly crushed it underfoot. I sat there for almost 20 minutes, chest heaving, trying to find a rational explanation. It had to be staged, a test, some kind of sick internal training film meant to scare newbies, but the fear in that technician's body was too real. The way the reflection moved independently, it wasn't special effects. That night, I returned to the staff dorm and flipped through my logbook. A dull gray journal we're told to update every day, just observations, nothing personal, but on the last page, I found something I hadn't written. A diagram. Sloppy. Almost childlike. Circles within circles. The center marked with an X and labeled origin. Below it, 4 words scratched deep into the paper. It remembers before you. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind kept returning to the glitching time. The way the dates jumped and blurred, as if time meant nothing inside that room. The next morning, I cornered the one person I thought might know more. Mira. She worked nights in diagnostics. Always wore noise-canceling headphones. Rarely spoke to anyone. But when I said the word mirror echo, she flinched. I told her everything. The lounge, the photograph, room 6, the tape. She didn't look surprised. She just said, "You've passed the barrier. Most don't." I asked her what that meant. She leaned in close and whispered, "This clinic doesn't erase memories. Not really. It redirects them. Takes the pain, the guilt, the trauma, and pushes it somewhere else." Where? She looked toward the floor, into the mirror, into the thing behind the glass. That's why the rules exist, to keep the transfer stable. But sometimes she hesitated. Sometimes it remembers who it used to be, before all the memories drowned it. My mouth was dry. I asked what happens when it remembers too much. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It tries to return what we gave. I left diagnostics, shaking, because, for the first time since arriving, I realized the truth. This place isn't a clinic. It's a prison, and we aren't guarding it. We're feeding it. I planned to leave that night. I didn't pack much. Just my ID badge, the gray logbook, and the tape. I figured I'd make it to the surface, walk the road until my legs gave out, and find anyone who might listen. But as I reached the exit hallway, I saw the janitor. He was standing, perfectly still at the far end of the corridor, mop in hand, facing the wall. I stopped cold. Rule 6. The janitor does not work here. If you see him cleaning the hallway, return to your room and wait exactly 9 minutes before resuming duties. Do not speak to him. He wasn't cleaning. He wasn't moving at all, just standing, as if he had forgotten what he came for. I turned around immediately, but the hallway behind me had changed. It wasn't a hallway anymore. It was the lounge, except wrong. Everything was dimmer, muted. The window was bigger, somehow stretching from floor to ceiling, and behind it, the fog, boiled like smoke. Red veins of light pulsed deep within, like a heartbeat trying to sync with mine. The door behind me shut with a soft click. I was alone, or so I thought. Then I heard my own voice, not like an echo, not repeating what I'd said, saying something else entirely. "Why do you think you were hired?" It said, calm and flat. "You never applied." I spun around, heart hammering. There was no one there, just my reflection in the window, except the reflection was still talking, even though I was silent. It smiled at me. "You've given it so much already," it said. "So many memories, so much grief. You should be grateful." I backed away. "This isn't real," I muttered. "This is some kind of projection." The reflection laughed, but not like me, not even close. It was a low, wet sound, like something gurgling through a throat full of static. Behind it, in the fog, a shape began to emerge, massive, shifting, human and not. Its outline bent the glass, stretched it. The thing moved like it was stitched together from hundreds of people, faceless and malformed, all reaching outward but never touching. It pressed up against the glass, cracks formed, hairline fractures. That spider webbed across the pane, glowing faintly with that same red pulse, a rhythmic, hypnotic flicker. My nose started bleeding again. The room vibrated. The floor shivered beneath my feet, and the overhead lights buzzed like hornets. The reflection leaned closer. "It needs a new vessel," it said. "You've been hollowed out, cleaned, emptied. You're perfect." I screamed and ran. The lounge door wouldn't open. I slammed my shoulder into it again and again, until it finally gave way with a groan. The hallway outside had changed. Gone were the smooth, sterile floors. Now, it was concrete, stained, ancient. The walls breathed, subtle, but unmistakable. In and out, like lungs under the building's skin. Emergency lights flickered on. An alarm sounded soft, almost apologetic. Just a low ding-ding-ding, like a distant elevator that never arrives. I staggered forward, disoriented, trying to retrace my path back to diagnostics. I needed Mira. She had answers. But when I reached the entrance to her wing, I stopped. The hallway, lined with mirrors, floor to ceiling, not real ones, projections, maybe, or screens. But each showed a different version of me, walking just a half second out of sync, wearing different clothes, bleeding from different places. One of them had no eyes. They all turned to face me at the same time, and they all smiled. "We never left," they said in unison. "You were always here." The hallway behind them stretched into a red-lit corridor that pulsed like muscle. I took a step forward, and the ground beneath me shifted. It was soft, wet, like walking on something alive. Suddenly, from behind, I heard footsteps, the same heavy gliding ones I remembered from the lounge. I turned. The janitor, except it wasn't him anymore. His uniform sagged from limbs too long. His face was stretched into a grin so wide it cracked the corners of his mouth. Where his eyes should have been, there were smooth patches of skin, and in his hand, he still held the mop, except it was dripping with something black, tar-like, smoking. He didn't run. He just raised the mop and dragged it along the wall, leaving a black smear that bubbled and hissed. The hallway lights flickered and burst. Darkness swallowed everything. I ran, no sense of direction, just forward, away from the sound, away from the mirrors, away from whatever the clinic had become. I crashed through a door, tumbled down a stairwell, and found myself in a section of the facility I didn't recognize. Rusted pipes, flickering, exit signs, exposed wires. Somewhere overhead, alarms kept repeating. System rejection, identity breach, vessel non. I slumped against a wall and opened my logbook again. The pages were blank, every entry gone, erased, except one, scribbled in red at the very end. "You left yourself here." A shadow moved across the hall, closer now. Whatever was hunting me, it didn't just want me to die, it wanted me to remember, to become what it had once been. I found Tom hiding in the oxygen calibration chamber behind medical integration. He was huddled in the corner, knees to his chest, muttering numbers under his breath. I almost walked right past him. The door was half shut, the room dim, but when I saw the glint of his silver chain catching the flickering light, I stopped. "Tom," I whispered. His eyes snapped open, bloodshot and wild. "Don't say my name," he hissed. "It hears names. That's how it tracks you." I crouched next to him. "It's awake," I said. "The thing behind the glass. The mirror echo. It's hunting me." He didn't argue, didn't look surprised. Tom stared straight ahead, lips trembling. "You opened the door, didn't you?" he whispered. "Room 6. That's where it started. I didn't mean to. You never do." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a torn piece of a photograph, just an eye and part of a mouth. It wasn't his. It wasn't mine. "I've burned over 40 pictures," he said quietly. "Still, it remembers." I stared at him. "You've been through this before." Tom didn't answer right away. He just shook his head slowly, like someone trapped in a memory he couldn't shake. "I was you," he finally said. 5 rotations ago?" I blinked. "What?" "They don't just wipe the patients," he said. "They tested on us. Technicians, low-risk staff. Strip us down to bone, rinse us clean, and drop us back in as new hires. We cycle through roles, over and over." I backed away from him. "No, that's not. Why do you think you feel like you've been here before? Why everyone's half familiar? Why your badge says 6 weeks, but your body remembers more. He grabbed my wrist. Because this place isn't just feeding the thing, it's training it. I pulled free. You could have told me. From the start, you knew I wasn't new. Tom nodded. I tried. The first few times I tried, they punished me. They erased me again. Said I was contaminating the loop. Said I was causing structural narrative overlap. My mouth went dry. Narrative. He looked up at me then, really looked, and his face, for the first time, wasn't haunted. It was hollow. Hollow in a way that only people who've lost themselves truly become. We're not working in a facility, he said. We're living inside it. Inside what? Tom leaned closer, whispering, the memory. It's memory. Not yours. Not mine. We're just reflections. A shudder crawled up my spine. Before I could respond, the door behind us slammed open. Security, but not the normal guards. These ones were taller, their uniforms wrong, faces blurred, like static masked in flesh. Their eyes glowed faintly beneath plastic visors that bent the light around their heads. Technician breach. One of them buzzed. Loop instability approaching 9%. Tom stood. He didn't run. You're going to erase me again? He asked, voice shaking. It won't help. He knows now. He remembers. They raised a black cylindrical device. Tom turned to me, mouth open to say something to warn me. Then, crack, a flash of light, a noise like glass being dragged across concrete. Tom dropped. No blood, no wound, just gone, like something had deleted his outline from the world itself. One of the guards turned to me. Report to diagnostics. Immediately. I didn't move. My ears rang. My legs trembled, but I stayed still. Silent. They didn't force me. They just turned and vanished. Into the hallway. Waited 5 full minutes before moving again. Tom was right. He hadn't just known what was happening. He was part of it. But whether he volunteered or was forced into it, I couldn't tell. Only one thing was clear now. There were no mentors here, no guides, no one to trust. Every smile, every warning, every rule, it was all part of the structure. A set of programmed boundaries designed to keep us from remembering the truth. That we weren't serving the clinic, we were the clinic. Pieces of it, memories inside a system that didn't want to forget, but couldn't hold on to the pain without breaking. And now, it wanted me to take Tom's place. I didn't go to diagnostics. I ran through corridors that stretched longer than they used to, past elevators that now only led downward. The facility had changed, responding to me, folding in on itself like a living thing trying to trap a splinter. Sirens wailed softly from far-off places. No direction, no urgency, just that constant ding-ding-ding, like a heartbeat or a countdown. I ducked into the central server hub, a massive humming dome buried beneath the recalibration wing. I'd only seen it once before, during training. We were told to never touch anything. The servers handled memory filtration and echo buffering, whatever that meant. Now, I knew the truth. The echo wasn't in the system. The system was built around the echo. There, among racks of blinking hardware, was the source node, a cylindrical black console pulsing with a soft red glow. Its screen flickered as I approached. You are not ready. You are not whole. You are not permitted to exit loop. I pressed my badge to the reader. The console shivered. New text appeared. Manual decision override available. One-time access granted to non-compliant vessel. A choice. The machine offered 2 options. 1. Begin new cycle. Erase current iteration. Return technician to day 1. To transfer composite memories to external source. Terminate loop. Exit. Simulation. The air grew colder. My hand hovered over the touchpad. That's when I heard my voice again. Not from the console this time, but from the room itself. I chose option 1, it said softly. I thought forgetting would save me. A figure stepped from the shadows. It looked exactly like me. Uniform, face, movements. But something was wrong with its eyes. They were full of memories I didn't recognize. Dead friends, foreign cities, a woman I'd never met, screaming my name in a burning room. It stepped closer. "You've been through this loop 13 times, it said. "You always find the truth. You always get this far. Then why haven't I escaped?" "Because you never finished the transfer," it whispered. "You never let go. You're afraid that once it leaves you, there'll be nothing left." My chest tightened. "Is that true?" I asked. "Will I forget everything?" It nodded. "Everything you were, everyone you loved, everything you've endured. The pain, the guilt, the fear." It paused. "But maybe that's not a loss." I looked down at the console. My fingers shook. I could reset it all. Let them wipe me clean and drop me back at day one. Pretend I never knew. Live a few more weeks in ignorance. Be a cog in a wheel spinning forever. Or I could end it. But if I transferred everything into the echo, what would I become? What was I without the memories? The console buzzed again. Final choice required. Outside, the walls began to distort. Screens cracked. Sirens surged. The system was collapsing. The mirror echo wanted in. I placed my palm on the pad, chose option. To dot, the machine screamed. Electricity tore through the room, lights flashing red and white. The floor vibrating so hard I couldn't stand. My clone staggered backward, clutching its head, screaming in voices that weren't mine. And then, stillness. The hum died. The lights went dark. The echo was gone, and with it so was everything I had once been. I stood up slowly, expecting emptiness, but something remained. A weight lifted. A silence in my bones I hadn't known I needed, like someone had taken all the noise inside me and buried it in a place that could finally hold it. I didn't remember my name. I didn't remember the clinic. I didn't remember the people I'd lost, or the guilt that brought me here. But I remembered one thing: the mirror can't hold what we choose to release. As I stumbled into the emergency stairwell and climbed toward the surface, I realized I wasn't free, but I was no longer part of it. Not the echo, not the loop, not the memory, and that was enough. I made it outside just before dawn. The sky above was gray, cloudless, and still. No wind, no birds, just silence that pressed against the skin. The facility's entrance behind me, that curved glass-lined wall, was already fading. Not into fog or smoke, but into something less than matter, like it was being quietly erased, one atom at a time. No alarms, no pursuit, just gone. I wandered for hours, along a road I didn't recognize, past hills that seemed too perfect, too symmetrical, like they'd been drawn from memory by someone who never really saw them in life. Eventually, I reached a town, small, quaint, a diner with neon lights, a corner store still opening, a postman whistling the same four-note tune over and over like a broken clock. It should have comforted me, but something was wrong. I didn't feel out of place. I felt inserted, like I'd been dropped here with just enough detail to pass. Clothes clean, wallet full. A fake name stitched into my memory like a patch on a uniform. I checked my phone. It had no number assigned, no photos, no calls, just a single message in my inbox. "Welcome home, HR department." I didn't open it, didn't need to, because deep down, I understood now. The mirror echo wasn't just buried beneath the clinic. It had always been bigger than that. It was the clinic, and the town, and the road, and every carefully constructed reality it fed back to the people who tried to escape it. It doesn't kill you, it remembers you. Break the loop, it builds a new one. Wipe your memory, it keeps the pieces. Transfer everything into the system, and it just adds another layer to the reflection, a deeper chamber in the labyrinth. And now, I was one of them, a cleaner copy. The guilt was gone, but the outline of who I used to be remained. An echo without a voice. A puppet given just enough autonomy to believe it was free, and across the street. Reflected in the diner's window, I saw it again, me, standing still, staring back, same eyes, same face, but it wasn't copying me. I was copying it. I blinked. The figure. Didn't a waitress inside the diner called out, "Hey hun, you coming in, or what?" I looked back at the window. Empty. Gone. Just a normal reflection now. I crossed the street in a daze, stepped through the diner doors, and sat in the nearest booth. The waitress poured me coffee without asking. Same 4-note whistle playing on the radio. And behind the counter, glass panel, slightly tinted, just enough to catch my reflection when I turned my head. Only this time, it smiled first.